Hello everyone, I've begun the webinar. First, we have to wait for the attendees to arrive.
Hi, Jihan.
Hi, Andy. Hi everyone. We're just going to give the rest of the attendees around 2 to 3 minutes to join, and then we'll begin shortly. Thank you. Hi everyone, good afternoon, and thank you for joining our briefing session, introducing you to our range of solutions under the Enterprise Data Information Management Framework for Analytics. We are realizing the importance of riding on insights derived from business data to drive agility in various decision-making processes, especially in this era of rapid change. So here, BPI Technologies would like to briefly showcase its solution offerings for partners who are interested to ride on the growing AI and analytics trend and deliver the relevant solutions to meet your customers' needs. And who better to explain all of this than our very own General Manager, Mr. Garrick Yap. I hand over the stage to Mr. Garrick.
Okay, thanks, Jihan. Let me quickly share my screen. Just give me a moment here. Okay, guys, very good afternoon. Before I proceed, right, just want to quickly share with you all that BPI Technologies is actually 100% owned subsidiary of InfoConnect. That's why you see my email ID is InfoConnect. So BPI essentially is a company set up by our CEO, specifically to focus on the business analytics area, serving InfoConnect is a pool of resources, specializing in analytics, serving InfoConnect Malaysia, InfoConnect Indonesia, Thailand, and all other partners in the region. So basically the agenda this afternoon, I'm just going to share with you in terms of, because since you guys are our partners, I just want to run through with you in terms of the overall solution that we carry in the analytics area. I won't really touch into the product side, but I think eventually you get the idea that you probably, you know that which product that we work with from a technology platform perspective. Right. I think I'll start it off in this particular area, whereby I think over the years, right, I think there was the, people were more involved in infrastructure, networking, cabling, and then somewhere along the line, they went into the backend applications, core applications, ERP, and so forth. Now they are moving into the information age. So I think together with our handheld devices, people are becoming more and more literate in terms of technology, as well as data. So I think where we're going from is that now they are actually looking in terms of information. They're looking for knowledge. They also get the idea that by, we can actually grow the technology to artificial intelligence, machine learning, and so forth. I think what is important right now is that to get those information, those business insights and whatnot to the data consumers, right? It is important that the approach and the platform to integrate the data from various applications is important. So what we have here essentially is a very simple roadmap that we share with our customers. At the bottom here is that first, the modernization of the data architecture, whether they wanted to run it on premise or on cloud, any cloud for that matter, right? Whether you want to base it on a container, design or up to bare metal servers, it's again within the preference. Now, what they want out of it essentially is that they want to quickly drive business innovation, not just for the fun of it, but successfully, right? Especially in the pandemic, right? This is even more so, urgent. And because of that, obviously, even for ourselves, we want to manage business outcomes effectively. And in order to do that, a lot of companies are saying that, I'm not looking for data, but I'm looking for data that is actually ready to be used by the business, right? And from this perspective, right, whether they work from home or from office, right, the business continues, right? So how are we going to help our customers moving into this particular direction? Whether it's an AI-enabled organization, or just to implement a foundation to provide business-ready data for the data consumers to use. So essentially, there are 4 key areas. One is we can help them gather their data, right? And then from there, we can manage the data. We'll share with you a little bit more. And then after that's done, then essentially is to put in the tools and to help them analyze the data and operationalize the data, whether it's from predictive or AI perspective, or they want to build into their processes. So along the way, right, what we are trying to do is also to start weaving analytics into the organization's overall data fabric. Data fabric is actually a term put forth by Gartner, which I'll share a little bit with you later on in the presentation. Right? So what the focus actually for this sharing session is mainly in terms of helping a customer to set up the data foundation. Okay. So as we all know, right, the digital transformation, business innovation, whatnot, all require data. And then we also realize that, especially based on our experience, we also know that a lot of data is also still in silo mode and or in very raw form. And a big percentage is actually still sitting there today, right? Hopefully, I mean, not hopefully, later on I will share a couple of use cases what I meant by this. So from the AI data analytics newsletter, I was able to get this. The research was done in such a way whereby they look at the amount of time spent in terms of data operations to prepare the data, to integrate the data and put it and transform the data into, what we call it business ready, right, to be used by the data consumers. So a big percentage spent on that. And what they wanted was, they don't really care about in terms of how the data is collected, or how it's transformed. What they want to see is information. For example, a simple dashboard, just wanting to know in terms of why customers are running away from us. What are the reasons, right? They are churning. Now, this data can come in from their applications. It can come in from CRM applications. It can also come in from various portals and various, CRM applications as well. I'm sorry, outside of the organization, right? It can be like those forums, it can be Facebook, can be any other social media platform, right? So they want to know. Right? Other things like, customer segmentation, right? What kind of customers do I have? What kind of products they buy? What kind of services do they consume, right? How satisfied are these customers? So they want to know all this information, right? This is a dashboard that a combination of data coming in from the backend application as well as the workflow. Now, this is the process portion, right? Normally, before processing is completed, it is going through the workflow and whatnot, and then it gets captured into the backend application. So, for example, like an insurance or credit application, a proposal submission was done. So then, before it gets approved, they go through a certain process like supplying a documentation. Yeah. So they want to track, right, whether their processing is effective or there's actually a delay coming in from the customers, and they also want to see how the potential customers interact with them, right? So, for example, in this case, how many of the credit application was approved, and how many was actually not taken up? Approved, but they did not end up taking it. So therefore, it impacted their overall conversion rate from prospect to customers. So they're checking out. And all what you see here, essentially, is all data coming in from various types of sources, right? From the organization, within or beyond the organization. This is another one that apply. They want to know also part of revenue retention. This is actually in the general insurance industry. We're looking at predicting in terms of which customer is not going to renew their insurance policy with the provider of insurance, right? So rather than knowing after the fact, after the customer has run away, so what happened is that they want to predict so it's potentially who is going to run away, and before the customer run away, they can actually take proactive action, right, to retain the customer. So then they look at different dimensions of the business. For example, they may want to look at the average claim turnaround time, how fast in terms of their service, right, to service the customer, right? What is their sentiment, for example, right? what is the agent service, right? How do they service the customers? So all these elements are taken into consideration, and all this information that you see is all coming in from various applications, right, in your organization. And they also do their salesperson profiling and segmentation in terms of education, in terms of age, in terms of gender, and then they want to see, right, which segment of their salespeople contribute. I would say 80% of the revenue, right? This one in this particular dashboard is we did something for a life insurance company. It was a very interesting study in this case. We did for one of our customers, right? The majority of their salespeople are like average salespeople based on our classification, but the revenue contribution, 80%, actually slightly more than 80% of the total revenue contribution come from the segment of outstanding agents, which is actually in the orange part. So therefore, what they want to do is, okay, knowing that I have the biggest percentage of my salespeople in this category, and the kind of products that they sell, right, is doesn't go, the revenue wise doesn't contribute as much. So they may want to take additional action to actually enable this segment of the sales team to contribute more. So this is something that, and then all these predictive analytics, machine learning and whatnot, is all, the data is all fed into all these various algorithms to do that prediction. So what I'm trying to say here is that to do all of that, right, a simple dashboard, a simple predictive analytics to do churn, policy retention, or revenue retention looks straightforward. But behind the scene, right, a lot of time is spent, right, into data operations, which include, like, for example, data discovery. I need to understand the data, right? I also need to assess the quality of the data, whether it's usable or not. Yeah, and then of course, having understood that, what kind of procedures they want to put in to clean the data. So a lot of time is spent doing that before they actually, push it out to the data consumers, where they use it for their reporting, for analysis, for decision making. So that's where we're going to focus on in terms of the data operations today. So, in a nutshell, what was to summarize what I just said was essentially to make this guy happy, right? The C-level, can be operational management, the sales and marketing team, the data scientists. But the guys here, the data stewards, the data quality analysts, and the data engineers, they put in a lot of work, a lot of efforts taken to actually go into the data and do a lot of operations onto it to provide the kind of business insights to the data consumers. Right. This is another one that we came across. This is in Malaysia, actually. This is a company, they want to know, they're collecting news, right, from various news portals and various social media platforms. They want to know what are the top news, what is the sentiment on those people who actually provide comments and feedback, right? Stuff like that. So they see all of it, then they can actually react appropriately, right? So if you look at, based on the research, right, from some of the professional bodies, yeah, a lot of them have been surveyed, right? They're saying that they want to make it easier for the data stewards, the data engineers to find data, right? So they're looking at, okay, maybe put in some form of like a data catalog. What does this piece of data mean? So that will make their life a lot more easier. So we're coming in from a solutions perspective to see how we can actually help from a data operations perspective to make it easy to understand, make it easy to find the data for those data operators. So now the umbrella term for all of this is called data governance, right? People get very scared when you see the word governance. It sounds like data policing, But essentially what it does is that, the whole objective is to make data consistent. For example, right, one department may be using the term called customer, right? Another department, right, maybe it's a new head or whatever, could be referencing the customer using a term called client, right? So in a company, we have a business term called customer and a business term called client. So if this department provides a report to the management, he will use customer, but the other department, right, will provide a term called client. So it becomes very confusing. So we want to make it consistent, and we say, okay, the meaning is like a dictionary, okay? Customer in this organization means this, for example, right? Gross profit in this organization means this. Is this formula? These are the rules, and this is what when we talk about gross profit, this is what we meant. So they want to standardize the understanding and the business semantics and the language within the organization. Now, having said that, therefore, what is substantiating that is quality of data as well, right? And that comes into play when we apply the rules to the data. It makes it more accurate, more complete. So therefore, it facilitates, right, the decision making much more better, and that will help in terms of planning and the financial performance of the company. And hopefully, right, is an expectation that they can actually maximize profits of the company using the information, right, derived from the data to drive their overall business performance. So in the overall data governance, there are a few key areas. There is the collection of data, data integration, whether I'm collecting structured data, unstructured data, or semi-structured data. You need a foundation for that. There is also the reference data as well, the so-called master data management in a way, right? There's a data catalog. They have the metadata management. What does this term mean? From a business perspective, what does it mean, right? And if you are combining data from few applications and you have some business rules attached to it, at the end of the day, some business users want to know how this data was derived, how it was transformed, and how it was calculated. That's where the data lineage comes to play. Last but not least is the quality side. Okay, so going into this area, then we have the data classification, we have the business terms, we have the technical terms. The biggest demand today, right, that I've come across is actually in the data quality side, right? There's a fair bit of demand in terms of data profiling to understand their data. And then once they understand the data, they want actually to clean the data, right? And usually, right, this is where they actually consolidate the data into a data lake, a data warehouse, whatever. And then within it, they will actually start to bind the data policy and the rules to the data to actually make it in terms of the consistency of interpretation and how it's calculated. So these three areas is actually the biggest demand in the market, even up to Indonesia as well. So the data quality side is picking up tremendously. Of course, the data integration as well, specifically for the unstructured side, like what I just showed you in terms of gathering data from outside of the organization, right? From news portal, from social media platform. So where these things apply, actually in our roadmap, is within these first two steps of the diagram, insofar as data collection and in terms of managing your data. Right? I will not cover so much on this area, mainly on the data foundation. So if you look at the quality side, big percentage is saying that they want to improve the data quality. Reason being because rather than spending time to question the data, they want to trust the data. So I think with the data lineage and all this information provided to the consumer, the data consumer, they are able to say, oh, now I understand how it's computed, where it comes from, right? And then they also want to see some form of some data dictionary or data catalog. Right? So you can see the top of the list is actually the data quality and the data trust. So in terms of business analytics, right, why all this data fits into here is because, it all boils down to one thing. It's about managing our overall business performance, right? So in terms of sales, how do we increase sales, right? Compared to last year or year on year, standard target, budget. Now, what are the products to sell, right? Who do I sell it to? When should I sell this? And which distribution channels gives me more revenue? Direct channels or indirect channels, right? What kind of customer buy our products? And what is our customer sentiment about our service, right? And then along the way, that where is our market differentiation, right, compared to the competition? And also, then a lot of them also collect pricing information as well, right? In terms of costs, how to reduce costs, where should I reduce costs, how to make it more efficient, and so forth. All of this requires data, and the business applications, right, on top of security, compliance, and infra, they produce data, right? And this data is actually going through the data foundation that I speak of, comes into the reports, the analytics, to AI, right? And these are common business questions. They look at customer profitability analysis, right? Right? Who are my top 5 customers by revenue, by gross margin, and so forth. Marketing analysis. This one is really ramping up the last 1.5 years, right? I'm sure you all know. You also receive a lot of invitations for webinars, and stuff like that to do the marketing side, to drive demand generation. Salesforce automation, right? In terms of the selling, how do we improve customer service, what are the trend, what are the customer sentiment, stuff like that. Then customer segmentation. The one in red are actually, we see a lot of this, right, over the 1.5 years. And then on top of that, this is a bit off topic, but essentially it's part of data quality. I've seen this many times, whereby all this data coming in from different applications. For example, they put it into a staging area or warehouse, they do a straight through reporting, right? Then, of course, naturally, right? Although these 4 customers or names are referring to the same entity, but from a system perspective, they treat it separately because there's no standardization, right? So if you want to know the highest sales, naturally, looking at this report, this guy will tell you that this IB manufacturer has the highest sales. But if you run through the profiling and the cleansing, and you realize that they're all the same, therefore, then we can standardize it, and then it will do the aggregation and give you the right answer for this. So it's one of the simple applications in the data quality and data cleansing side, right? I've seen this in Malaysia. I also seen this in one of the insurance companies in Indonesia as well. So the other one that we look into is actually from the technology perspective. They do sample matching in terms of, probabilistic matching is part of the technology that we carry. And if you have 2 records coming in from 2 separate applications from the same customer, it's able to give you some matching based on the rules set, and they will tell you that these are probably the same customer, rather than going through manual eyeballing. They apply weights or not based on the rules that you attach to it, right? And then same thing, right? They do a lot of, you can also set the rules and say which one you want to retain. For example, these are 3 separate records from 3 separate applications, the street address. Then you will do all this probabilistic matching, and then you put in the rule, and then you say, okay, it will start to process it, and then this is the record we will retain. So again, it will help out from that area as well. Okay, I won't cover this because I just mentioned this as well. So therefore, with the data lineage and all these data operations taking place, and from a data consumer perspective, if they were to look at the report and say, okay, what does it mean? Let's say if I have 2 business terms called customer and client, what does customer mean? What does client mean, right? And if I have who is the owner of this data, let's say I detect some discrepancy in my customer data, who is the data owner, meaning who's the data steward that I can contact to actually give a feedback, do correction, right? Where does this data come from? How is it computed, right? What kind of policy rules exist, for example? So they can actually get this information immediately, rather than going back and forth with all the different parties within an organization to get this information. So one of the key areas in terms of the data visualization side, once the data is ready, they are applying these AI-based capabilities to actually prepare the data, right? You can do the analysis from there using augmented intelligence. You can share it out with the users as well, right? So there you go. We work with IBM for the data and AI portfolio in the IBM Cognos Analytics, which is actually the front-end tool. to actually drive on data to provide dashboard reporting with AI infused to it. Now, the latest one, I don't have it. In fact, they are releasing the latest version this evening in the US. They are actually blending AI into the BI area. So once I have it, I will share more with you guys. But as it is today, they already have the AI portion, the blending of augmented intelligence into the product itself, right? So it saves a lot of additional manual report creation, which sometimes users do ask on an ad hoc basis. So it's able, it has its natural language query. It will come into, it will tell you this sales revenue last year compared to this year. It's able to go in there and bring up all the relevant data, and it will recommend different types of visualization that actually will be useful to you. That is an augmented intelligence, but the AI portion from Watson, it will coming in this evening. So from the predictive analytics side, is able to do the correlation, right? In this case, this is part of that. That's what we saw for the customer churn analysis. Is able, from the data itself, is able to do, based on some algorithm, is able to do some correlation. For example, for product A, who is likely to churn, right? For male, for example, the kind of correlation. For the AI portion, right? Currently today, one of the reasons we work quite closely with IBM because of the AI from Watson's portfolio. So today they already have the auto AI, right? Compared to traditional auto machine language, we do a lot of programming and whatnot. So this has actually been put in place to make the transition to AI much more easier, much more faster for the customer. Okay, so these are some of the use cases. The one that we see a lot is actually churn reduction from customer. Some call it customer retention, policy retention, revenue retention. Also looking into customer service management as well. The insurance area, they look into pricing and promotion, right? Also as our next order to buy. Basically, all of this is something that we're looking at. Most of them want to apply those advanced analytics to actually derive business insights to help drive the business. So, but the foundation itself, also like I mentioned, right, the part of the modernization of data architecture is also riding on in terms of whether they want to put it on cloud or on premise, right? So then from that, they actually put the that's where the organization of the data, because of data catalog, the models, the rules are put onto this particular platform. So this one is actually the Ibm Cloud for data, riding on Red Hat and OpenShift, right? If they are looking into deploying to a cloud basis, they can actually use this, or they can use the same thing to be on premise as well, right? But the technology within it is a bit slightly different from what we've been doing. Is riding on the containerization technology, right? Under the Kubernetes containers for the setting up of the various applications on this platform. So I won't cover very much on this one. Let me quickly run through. Okay, so the data fabric that I mentioned earlier, right? It was coined by Gartner. Essentially, is what they want to do, lah. Any data, any cloud, anywhere, and the kind of data they're looking at. Whether I'm coming from IBM, from Oracle, doesn't really matter anymore, right? I can push it in, right, into common area, right? Then actually push the data out for AI, for reporting, for operational usage purposes, right? So this is where this whole data fabric is about. And then they go into, like I mentioned, the data cataloging, right? Because they're coming from so many sources, right? I need to put a catalog like a library, right? Where to find a book, right? Then you have auto AI, and then sometimes I do not want to bring all the data in. I just want to do some data virtualization. So the features are available, but then again, I do not want to send the wrong message out by saying that you must have this. It can be implemented on a piecemeal basis as well, but it's just that the way they put together as a single platform for so that they can manage it easier. So there are some that may not need everything. Some say, I want the whole thing. So to wrap up my presentation, essentially this is what we do as far as the overall solution overview is concerned. I just cover a fair bit, not fair bit, general overview in terms of what we do, in terms of governance, in terms of the data cleansing, the assessment, and data matching and correction. This is the data integration, regardless of whether we're coming from structured data, semi or unstructured data, right? So then this is the repository portion, whether it is a data warehouse or data lake, data mart, we call it data repository, you can push in there, right? And then a little bit on the visualization portion, so far on the reporting as well as the predictive analytics. So what we want to do is that part of the objective in terms of the data catalog and in terms of the business term is actually align and collaborate with the business people so that the understanding is the same, right? From a technical perspective as well as from a business perspective. So putting all together is what Jitsu mentioned, the glossary, the terms tagged to the catalog, okay? Now, as I mentioned, we are talking more about here. I touched a little bit here and a little here, right? So what's happening? This is a use case, a very simple use case that we are doing currently. For example, they have many sources. This is the insurance company, the holding. We are coming from a holding perspective. They own the life insurance. They also own general insurance, right? This is actually in Indonesia, right? They also running a workflow. They have CRM, right? They do some collection of data using NPS, their Net Promoter Score, right? To collect some sentiments from the customer as well as the agent. They also have some mobile applications as well. What they want to do, the whole objective, right, is they want to have customer 360, a single customer view. From the single customer view, they want to know what's the wallet share from each line of business. What is the revenue contribution in terms of life, in terms of general. They also, from there, they also want to know which agents, which associates can sell, are good at selling what product, right? And they want to know which customer will buy what service or buy what product and when will they buy it, right? So they do a lot. In here is about customer segmentation, there's agent segmentation and profiling as well. And how they do it is that off the cut, right? They want to be able to do cross-selling within each line of business. Meaning to say that I want to do cross-selling within the life side. I also want to be able to do cross-selling, right? Between life and general. So if I have a customer who is a life insurance customer, what kind of general insurance products can I sell to this particular customer? So they have two-pronged approach. One is to sell within each line of business and between line of business. So then they're looking for the various customer segment. They're also looking in terms of which sales channel is more effective to push certain products and services to certain segments of the customers, right? So for the more younger ones, chances are they'll go to mobile, right? Stuff like that. So this is where we apply the predictive analytics to do the segmentation for customer, agent, and so forth, right? And within the enterprise data warehouse, right, the data will come to here, right? Then we will apply the data modeling based on all the data collected from the various applications, right? And then we'll just push for reporting purposes as well as to push the data for the predictive analytics. Now, back to what we were talking about, before it comes to all of these places, right, it goes through the profiling, right, the data cleansing, they do the data matching, because again, this customer may exist in more than one or two applications behind. So this is where the matching using the probabilistic matching technique to actually help us to consult, standardize the record for the customer. Then we put in the glossary, the rules, and the data lineage. Because somewhere along the line, in the business user, they'll probably say, how is this calculated? So they can actually drill back and understand that, oh, it's coming from here, and these are the rules binding. Now, the other thing is not sometimes, depending on who you are in the organization, they may not want you to see, for example, for data scientists, crunching on the numbers to do segmentation and whatnot. They may want to mask sensitive data like your policy number, your IC number, your addresses and whatnot, because to them, they may need it part of computation, but it may not be relevant to the computation. So they do a lot of data masking as well. So this is one of them. Another one, a more simpler one, is this one is from bank that we did some time back. So what they want to do is that they are emailing out all their statements to the customer, right? To ensure that the data, the statement reaches their customer, right? They go through a process to actually, again, the data assessment, and then go through the data cleansing mode to ensure that the email IDs are valid. Not so much in terms of whether the email will reach you, but in terms of the format, right? At gmail.com, not at gmail.com.my, and you know it's not valid. So we went to that to make sure that all these things taken care of, shoot it out to the email system, right? And then they will just send it out to their customers. But in here, we also push it out to our enterprise report distribution system as well, in case the customer want to actually come back in to do some checking and whatnot. Okay, so that's one of the use cases that we also work on. Now, this one is a very interesting one. Just came across this a couple of weeks back, and it's already happening. You will hear this word hyper-automation quite fairly now. It's part, they call, I mean, a lot of them term is game changer. Essentially, they're actually combining a few tools together now, right? They're integrating several tools, like including robotics, right, to help them with the management of content and information, right? So in hyper-automation, as far as InfoConnect is concerned, we have our DocuFlow, our workflow. We also have RPA, as well as what I just showed you in terms of analytics, right? So how they want to do it is actually that in, let's say in our DocuFlow, we store a lot of, documents. It can be contracts, it can be, certificates, it can be agreements and whatnot. And there's a lot of information, a lot of data sitting here, a lot of information sitting here, which the customer want to extract. So traditionally, right, they will use OCR to capture, right? They create a template, and then they use what they call zone-based to capture the data. What's happening now is that, when they're doing this, there's a maker and checker, and come into here, right? They're automating this portion now, right? So customer scan, then this automation takes over. OCR will start doing the conversion of physical to digital. They will do the automatic classification of documents. From there, they use natural language processing to extract the values, right? And then you use AI and machine language to do the to provide the automatic scrutiny checking, right? Then essentially from the end user perspective, you do a quick sanity check before it actually goes into the downstream applications, right? This has been actually been put forth by the you will hear that from IBM. You will also hear this from UiPath as well. They're putting all of this together. So for InfoConnect, we have been doing this for quite some time already. So we are also now putting it all together as a platform for our customers to actually ingest AI and analytics into all this entire automation, right? So this is what it does. So this is an area which is not so straightforward, but the capabilities are already in the hyper-automation portion. It's part and parcel of that. So now, in terms of, I was also asked to actually talk a little bit in terms of how can we help our customers to drive demand. There are certain keywords that you need to look out for when talking to customers. Especially, I got many data sources, they all silo, right? And they want to actually consolidate that. So this is an opportunity. And then we have come across quite a number of customers telling us takes too much time, to provide reporting analytics to their management, right? So there's also a heads up on that one. Sometimes they say, oh, yeah, we want this, we want to do this, but we have a problem with our data quality, right? We need, I come across one organization, they actually hired a bunch of students to do eyeballing, right? The problem is that there's money spent, but the data quality still remains not so good because, one and L, 0 and O, G and 9, yeah, that kind of thing. So eyeballing may not be good. So we use a system to do that. So now they're actually switching to an automated system to actually detect all of that stuff. As I mentioned, unstructured data, documents, from news portal, from the web, from the social media platform, they're collecting this as well, right? They have the other keyword looking for is that they have a very, very weak data foundation. And of course, the other one is that, hey, my boss wants to do AI. That's another heads up for that. The most one we hear is customer 360, single customer view, customer analytics. This is the one that we see and hear most of the time. And there's a big demand for this today in terms of doing this. So these are some of the keywords that you may look out for when you're conversing with your customers, right? Then you can see the opportunity, see whether you can qualify for it, to see whether the opportunity exists. Of course, cloud-based. Because cloud now is a part of the sustenance strategy for organizations. So that's why a lot of time moving to cloud-based infrastructure today. So I'm going to stop here, right? And take it. Any questions that you guys may have here? Back to you, Jihan.
Thank you, Garrick, for helping us understand the world of data and AI as well as analytics. As AI becomes a lot more prominent in our lives, it is never too late for us to get familiar with the technology. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to type your questions in the chat box or in the Q&A box. So we will leave the floor open for a few minutes to see if anybody has any questions. It doesn't seem like there are any questions here.
Yeah, I mean, I covered the some of the areas, may not be in detail, just very high level, skim through the high level, because each of the segment that I covered actually has a lot more to it, which I cut off a lot. So as I said, you may not have any questions now, it's okay, but like I said, I think some of you all know me. Feel free to drop us an email or whatnot. I'll be more than happy to go into more detail with you, right? From a part, again, this sessions for our partners, which we also help to as part of a sales call. There's any help that you need, then yeah, you can always contact us. I think I worked with some of you all before as well. And for those in attendance today, I think you all know how we work together. But the way it's going today in the region, I'm sorry, I don't want to say in the region, because predominantly we focus in Malaysia and Indonesia. As I know from Malaysia and Indonesia, there's a huge demand in terms of setting up a data foundation. Of course, along the way, right, when we speak to the management, they give us a big picture in terms of what they want to do, right? I got customers telling us that, hey, we have dashboards, but it's all static. We can't get very much out of it, right? So they come back to us and say, how can you help us with that, right? Because at the end of the day, right, if we look at the tools from a tools perspective, yeah, I mean, the tools can do all this fancy stuff like drill down, drill across, and stuff like that. Every tool can do it, but then we need to go slightly, take a step backward, and we're going to ask ourselves in terms of what makes the dashboard work. It's not the functionalities and capabilities are built in, right? But in the dashboard, in the report, is actually the data that is populating it. And if the data is not set up or not organized in such a way whereby it gives the end user the flexibility to actually do, let's say, a multi-dimensional analysis, then I mean, of course, it defeats the purpose. I just traditional reporting that we're talking about 15, 20 years ago, right? So now customers, they are smart because they know these are things that you can do with technology. So they are demanding for more flexibility to get more business insights, right? And this is where I think the data structure become very important, right? There are some we have also come across that because the quality of the data is no good, right? They are giving the wrong information, and the business user, they know it's not correct because for whatever reason the data was captured wrongly, or I don't know. There are many reasons behind it. So my point is that no matter how sophisticated is the tool that they're having, they will just not use it anymore, right? So the conclusion is that, oh, the system just doesn't do what we want it to do. But basically, it's not so much a product perspective. It is the data that's actually, that was not set up properly. So we got that. And the other one is like, hey, I want to do my customer segmentation. I want to do cross-sell. Then we work backwards, and then we realize that, oh, in order to help you achieve that objective, right, we need to do this. Because it makes no sense. If you would take the data as it is, and let's say you don't go through the data quality assessment, right? Whatever the system is predicting, it's not all wrong. And then at the end they'll come back to us and say, hey, your algorithm cannot pakai lah, all the doesn't work one. So rather than risking that, so it's okay, let's go through this process. Make sure you have this data, it's clean. You have historical data to justify certain actions that your customer has taken, right? So we're using that, putting all together to fit into an algorithm to do this kind of prediction. Because this is something that we have done in Indonesia, I think a couple of years back. For one of the telco companies, we did that, and then the results were quite very close insofar as what the actual versus predicted. So, but then again, the team that we were working with, they understood that you need to do all of this to get reliable results. So we went through that. So there are many ways. That's why I say the data foundation is actually the bridge between your application that you have today and the analytics that the business users are looking for. So without this data foundation as the bridge, it's not going to happen, right? So I will share a bit. This is my perspective. Okay, Jian.
Thank you, Garrick. Thank you for helping everybody understand better. And I hope everyone has had a productive time today in our session. Feel free to contact Garrick. We will attach his email in our upcoming emails to all the attendees. So no worries. We'll also link a recording of this session in case you missed anything. So thank you once again to everyone for attending, and we hope to see you in our future sessions as well. And thank you to all the panelists and the organizees who helped to help make this possible. Thank you once again, guys, and we will end our session here. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.